Forever. Dog.
Hey, this is Gabe Gonzalez, and I host the brand new podcast, Queerty.
And this is Alex Berg, and I host the brand new podcast, LGBTQ Nation.
Two brand new podcasts made lovingly just for you.
On Thursdays, I sit down with the best LGBTQ journalists, activists, and politicians to discuss the most pressing topics in the community.
And on Fridays, I end each messy week right by sitting down with the funniest, smartest, and sexiest people in the world to talk pop culture, entertainment, news, and more.
LGBTQ Nation and Queerty, politics, and pop culture.
On Thursdays, you cry. On Fridays, you laugh.
No, it's not all sad. We have some good news on Thursdays.
Okay, what am I talking about? These days, you can cry every day of the week.
Listen to both shows and get to know everything you need to know.
You're already holding your phone, so subscribe to Queerty and LGBTQ Nation today on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Only on Forever Dog.
Forever. Dog.
Among gentle spirits of the air, our podcast awakens at the early dawn. It may include censored sunbathers, talking body parts, and Simpsons trivia as breathtaking as the French Alps. Matt Warburton joins us to talk Epcot's film Impressions de France, not to mention his work on the Simpsons Ride. This is podcast Les Attractions. Welcome to Podcast The Ride, a podcast about theme parks that might get a little dry, so if you're bored, just do a Beauty and the Beast sing-along instead. I'm Scott Gardner, joined by Jason Sheridan. Hi.
Hey, bonjour, mon ami. I'm very excited for an episode subtitled, Jason mispronounces any number of French names, landmarks, cities.
Yeah, we're pretty screwed. It's going to be a lot of Versace and such.
Yeah.
But Mike Carlson, how do you think you'll fare?
Well, look, I did 2 years of high school French, and I was addressed as Bernard in that class. So I do think maybe this will all come back to me. Have I studied up on it? No. Have I relearned anything? No. But I'm hoping that I'll remember things like I'll remember how to say, let's say, Keller A. Teal. That's what time it is. It's asking what time is it. Excuse me. Jeez. But so that just came back to me now. So we're going to have revelations like that as we go on. So I'm excited to see what's still in my brain.
This is maybe your only chance to show it. This is the only application you found, seemingly, for 2 years of high school French, is this very episode. So don't blow it.
I will try not to.
And I guess we'll learn about the French skills of our guest, who mainly it seems like is a pretty huge theme park fan, a pretty big Epcot head. So we're excited to talk to him. He's a comedy writer who's worked on The Simpsons and the Mindy Project. It's Matt Warburton. Hello.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs.
Oh, geez.
I don't speak any French either. I feel bad. Not one of four of us speaks a word of French. I have learned every French word I know is from either the people introducing the movie we're about to talk about or things mentioned in the 18-minute France documentary at Epcot itself. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough road for the audience here. People are coming to it hoping for kind of a Duolingo experience where they can pick some stuff up. I don't know. It's not coming from
Yeah. I wonder how helpful those apps are. This movie reminded me I've always wanted to see Paris and the French countryside. I've always wanted to go to this, and looking up some French language stuff, I was like, I would need to do some prep before I do this. But I had 6 or 7 years between middle school, high school, and college of Spanish. And there was so much emphasis on finishing workbooks and worksheets and textbook chapters that I really did not do a very good job at learning how to speak it.
So are you calling into question the American education system? basically.
Yeah, I'm going out on a real limb here and calling out the American education system.
I see. Well, I agree with you. I mean, I think actually now that I think about it, I did take some junior high French, and it's like not practical. There's like must be a better way. I don't know if it's total immersion. I assume that's the best way for most people to learn a language. But yeah, it's not like I came out. You would think after a year of study or 9 months of study that I would have some good grasp on it, and I do not. And it was also a time when my brain was actually absorbing things. So you would think that would be
before
good.
that stops. Yes,
Yeah,
into adulthood.
It's done. I remember the names of the Ninja Turtles friends, and I remember the pavilions at Epcot, and that's about it.
I was absorbing Kids in the Hall reruns, and that's what ate up most of my brain power.
Sure.
All right, so it's an Epcot-centric worldview here, evidently. And Matt, from us exchanging DMs a little bit, yeah, it seems like you're a pretty big Epcot like that's the focus of your theme parkdom, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going to Disney World and Epcot since I was a little kid. Probably first time. I'm like a little older than you guys, probably like 84, 85. So, I've been on Horizons. I was on Original World of Motion, and, like vintage Epcot is definitely my way into loving theme park stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely carried over, and also what I will say is that a thing that's interesting about World Showcase and the French Pavilion in particular in the movie that we're talking about is like, I'm also happen to be really interested in like World's Fairs, and I don't know if you guys know this, but like Epcot was designed to be permanent World's Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Disney World has done all this. The Disney company and Imagineering had done all this work working on the '64 World's Fair and things like that. I didn't realize this when I first started going to Epcot, but I was like, when I found out that like, oh, there are these things called World's Fairs that are like Epcot, I, as a kid, was like, oh, this is great. And so as an adult, I've been to 4 of the actual World's Fairs, which they still have. Nobody in America knows about them or goes to them, but they still every couple of years they have one. And so like I am proof positive that like that they are really very much like going to Epcot, and Epcot's better, but they're still around. And I will say that like the experience of the movie, the Impressions of France, the movie we're talking about, is like the most accurate sort of thing of what a real World's Fair is actually like. So the audience is getting a pretty good example of that.
Like the kind of thing they show. Like there are films
I mean, it's a
like
movie,
this.
and sort of like an Imax-y type of movie that's basically like trying to get you to go there as a tourist and sell you an idea of the country,
of going to the place.
Yeah,
Where have you been?
Like, to be honest, like they'll throw money. Like I've been to like the North Korea Pavilion at the Chinese World's Fair in 2010. Like, yeah, they you'd be surprised how they can like gussy up a pretty awful country to make it look nice. One of these pavilions.
Wow, that's insane. I guess I've always my interest in World's Fairs has sort of stemmed from like that there were other 80s ones with sort of the blocky retro future vibe of Epcot, like Expo 86 I think was in wait, now I'm mixing it up. Is that Montreal maybe? Or there's a Knoxville one. But like, what's the feel of a current of like a post 2000 World's Fair?
Yeah, the ones I've been to, I would say the most like sort of they tend to be like futuristic, but in a kind of like shopping mall kind of way. I mean, there aren't a lot of rides, which is one thing I was disappointed to learn. They're often like one or something, but they're they're not like Imagineering quality. They're sort of like cardboard cutouts and stuff, or like a little roller coaster or something like that. But yeah, I would say that like for sort of Angelinos and audience, they kind of have the vibe of the new Century City Mall, kind of, but on a much, much, much larger scale. Like to the point where the last one that I went to was 2015, which was in Milan. It actually had an Eataly in it, and so when the Eataly came to our mall here in LA. It really transported me to the 2015 Milan World Fair.
Like not Italy proper, but the version of Italy, and
they vary in quality. I will say the one in Shanghai in 2010 was one of the coolest things. It was unreal. Just the physical fair itself. So like it was like imagine Epcot that was the size of Monaco. I think it was so big.
Jesus.
Wow.
Mind blowing. But they throw these things up, and one of the cool things about World Fair is they throw it up and then they tear it all down a year later and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's a cool thing about Epcot is that it doesn't go away. So it's like everyone can see it and you get attached to it and obsess over it.
Are World's Fairs on? Do you know on like a Olympics schedule? Like, do you know are the next few planned out basically?
Yeah, it's, so they do a big one every 5 years. So on the fives and the tens. So they were supposed to be one. The last big one was in Milan, like I was saying, in 2015. The next one, which got bumped because of COVID, is Dubai.
Whoa.
Man, those guys are going to know how to do it right.
Really?
I understand that they built an airport just to get in and out of it. Is how crazy it is.
Oh my God.
Maybe they rescheduled it for this winter.
We'll see. Yeah,
Fingers crossed.
Something for a future.
We've all been upset about Tokyo Olympics getting canceled and like the level of tech and theming that's going to be. But now maybe suddenly I'm more disappointed by Dubai World's Fair not happening. I don't think you were not on The Simpsons when there was the big run about the Knoxville World's Fair, right? That was
before I was there. Yeah, I did work on the Epcot episode. That was like 13 or 14, right when I was first started being there.
Gotcha.
Which was fun because I was like still too early there to really have a huge role in that, but it was a subject I knew a lot about. The issue being that Al Jean, the showrunner of The Simpsons, great guy, gave me my job, fantastic person, great writer, does not like Epcot. He loves Disney stuff. He loves Disneyland. He just really has it in for Epcot. And so it was really tough to do that episode because he just wanted it to seem like really lame. I guess that's more fun. And I guess it's a comedy show, so it's like it wouldn't be that funny if the jokes were like, "Isn't this place great?" But yeah, it was a struggle. I think the designers did a good job. There's like horizons in the background, some shots and stuff. But
right, yeah, and the future sphere does feel very like you're waiting for Spaceship Earth.
Eastern Airlines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the airplanes are like whipping people, like Dream Flight, sort of.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
When you were in that room, was it just a situation where you're like sitting on your hands when it would be like a joke would come up about Epcot where you're like, that's actually not accurate?
Absolutely. And look, I mean, I love Epcot. I'm not going to get fired over it.
Sure. No, I don't. You shouldn't have. Epcot's not worth it. Which I know that, by the way, I just said something that'll anger a lot of our audience.
You've never been in this position to potentially lose a job by saying that Epcot's okay and not bad.
It's worth it to go to. It's not worth losing a good job for, is what I'm saying.
I also liked the accuracy of that Epcot is the venue for a Teacher of the Year awards. That feels like the most like there is a like Eisner. There was some American Teacher Awards thing that was broadcast on the Disney Channel.
They do a lot of like, they would host big conventions and stuff like that there. So it kind of, I forget what the other crazy thing was. It was, I think Little Richard was the guest in that episode, and rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
He did a great job. One thing I remember really clearly though was that in a script, this is Hollywood talk. Audience members.
Scripts, though.
It's a peek behind the curtain at the biz.
There's often, what's called a reader or an internal on a line of dialogue in a script, right? It says like, yelling, get out of here, or whatever. It's like a little two parentheses with like how to read the line in it, called a parenthetical or a reader in Hollywood terms. Okay, so there was a line for Little Richard, who's a singer. He's not a professional actor. His line was, "Is this true, Edna?" referring to Mrs. Krabappel, Edna Krabappel. And the reader was furious, so that he would know how to read it. And I think we did 100 takes of this guy. Every single time it was, "Furious, is this true, Edna?" We're like, okay, no, I know it says furious, just anything in the parentheses. Got it, no problem. "Furious, is this true, Edna?" One of my happy memories.
That's great.
That's exactly what I want out of him. I love hearing that.
The podcast episode about the France Pavilion at Epcot.
Yes.
Did it have to be cut up at all to make the timing right? Or did he get it eventually?
We got it clean.
Okay. Maybe a line.
And he'd done. I'm curious if any of our listeners worked on his many guest appearances on shows like Full House, and like he'd done a lot of things. If there was a similar situation, no longer, sadly, we can't ask the man himself anymore. But
Right.
Yeah. When he passed away, I was obviously like what you were supposed to reflect on are his contributions to music, but I went to the many 90s cameos of Little Richard.
Yeah.
There's a good Mother Goose, Rock and Rhyme. He's Old King Cole. Some very bizarre line readings in that I'm very fond of. I gotta rewatch the Simpsons one. And speaking of the Simpsons, before we started, you reminded us the fact that you were part of the Simpsons Ride. You were one of the main folks putting the ride together. That's amazing.
Yes.
But it's definitely like the thing I've worked on that I'm proudest, probably. It was, or at least the most fun for sure. Because as I said, coming as a person who's been obsessed with this stuff since I was a little kid, to actually get to work on ride. And actually, when Universal came to us, because The Simpsons always has this kind of like special level of control whenever it does something, just because it's like sort of a comedy institution and the way the deals always work. So when The Simpsons does a video game, they can really dictate how the video game turns out. And I had come from that team. We had just done a couple of the 2000s era video games like Hit and Run and some of those things.
Right.
And I think I read on a message board back in the day that they were going to turn the Back to the Future ride into a Simpsons thing. They were going to redo it. And I hunted down the executive. I remember literally chasing her car down and being like, hey, I heard there's a new ride. I have to work on it. You have to let me do this. I remember stupidly at the time saying, I will do it for free. Please let me do this. Luckily, she was like, we will pay you a tiny amount of money. I was like, great. But so like I happen to be the person who was most into this sort of stuff on the staff at that time of The Simpsons. So they kind of just let me, be in charge of the project for much of its run. We had a great team. We had Matt Selman and Danny Chun and a bunch of other writers, but it was literally like a Make-A-Wish Foundation treat for myself. Like I got to really figure out like what we wanted the ride to be and go through the whole process. And it was great. It took like a year. It was kind of during the writer's strike. So like we all had a ton of extra time to really make it great. And, we would do these things where, we would write the script. And I worked really closely with this guy, Colin Heck, who's our assistant director. He's a Simpsons animator. And we would work on the script. We had a little trailer on the Fox lot to do it. And then at night, they would work on a rough pencil animatic of the animation for the ride, and we would ride it on the screen at Universal that night. We'd drive over and they would just project it, and we'd be in the DeLoreans because the cars were still Back to the Future. The ride had been open all day as a Back to the Future ride, but like we test out like the moves and stuff.
Wow.
I mean,
jeez.
Imagine. I mean, like heaven.
Yeah, I got. We're all suppressing. Like we don't just want to shout
we want to
noises
squeal
of
with
joy.
glee.
I've never gotten over it. How insanely fun that was.
God, wow.
Yeah, so it was like an unbelievable experience. And
So,
I do feel bad. I mean, like we'll probably talk about this. Like, I feel like the France movie, which is one of my favorite things at Epcot, is always in danger of being replaced. It's always like it's got this Beauty and the Beast thing nipping at its heels. If that's popular, who knows what's going to happen, right?
Right.
And so many great things at Epcot have like changed over the years.
Sure. Yes.
And I felt like I wasn't going to say no to the Simpsons thing, but I definitely felt bad because a lot of people loved the Back to the Future ride and were like annoyed that this beloved thing, which I thought was good. It wasn't my favorite or anything, but like hey. So I've been on the other side of this. I get it. Like if someone offers you, you're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. With this though, I feel like, was there a pressure where you were like, oh, if people don't like this, I'm going to have the weight of theme park fan guilt? Because like I think the consensus I hear is some people like Simpsons. We all like that Simpsons ride a lot.
Yeah,
it's really cool, and it is like a worthy successor. But
I will say that like there were a lot of. I think it turned out great. It was very much like what we wanted, and it was like got to be like about theme park stuff, which I was really happy that they let us do. It's hard to ride it now because like there's a million things I wish we could still change because like you're used to the animation process where you have forever the dialogue and stuff, and it was also weird. It was a weird group of people. It was like people from Universal who were amazing. There was Fox people, there was the Simpsons writers, and there were a lot of compromises made throughout each line of dialogue and just making everything. It was also an interesting challenge. There aren't a lot of rides that are like actually like not just a theme park movie, but like a thing, a physical attraction where you're moving that has to like get you to pay attention to a joke being said at you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, being thrown around and moving and, doing simulated like 360s and stuff. It's hard to process like a joke.
Yeah.
Long line of
right,
dialogue.
right.
So we had to make things like really simple, and sometimes we'd do it and it wouldn't make sense and we'd have to make it simpler. And also we actually had tested out. There's a thing at the end where Barney, the Simpsons character Barney, burps.
Mm-hmm.
And we had actually tested out spraying a bad smell at you.
Oh.
And this is right at the end of the ride after like you've been jostled around, and we were like, everyone's gonna throw up. So the burp is still there, and I think the ride physically has the ability to throw a bad smell at you, but it doesn't.
Whoa. It was built to have a burp, and then that was
There
was
is one
canceled?
smell. It's a baby powder smell.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, yeah.
In Maggie's mouth, right?
Mhm.
Yes, and that's a nice smell. So it's like nobody likes that. But then Maggie spits you out, and then there's a part where Barney is like front and center, and he burps at you.
Right.
Too much. The cleaning budget on that thing would have been disgusting. And also, those are tiered ride vehicles. Like you would have had a surprise from upstairs.
Oh yes, yeah. It would have dripped down a couple levels. You'll be happy to hear that the smell in Maggie's mouth made it to our very prestigious fake smell Final Four composite competition. It didn't win, didn't go all the way, but it was in one of the 16 competitors. So you guys should rest easy
I should
with
go
that.
back and listen to this. What won?
The
Oranges?
ET
forest.
forest smell.
The ET forest. Okay.
Yes, yeah, the smell in the line for the ET ride. I think did Maggie end up? It was in a chaos category with Rome burning from Spaceship Earth. Actually, this is a nightmare category for you. It's your work versus something I'm not.
Versus your
I
passion.
would have gone with my heart on that one. That's burning Rome anytime.
Yeah.
I
Unfortunately,
think I
it's
voted for
grandfathered
Maggie,
in.
didn't I? I can't
Might
remember.
have. We'll have to go check.
'Cause it's such a specific. I don't know. It's so unique. The Maggie, the talcum powder or whatever it's called, baby powder. Excuse me.
Right.
It really is what the inside of a baby's mouth smells like. So
Right.
I was going to say, to give you credit as a fan, when we asked, like, what would you want to talk about? You led with all Epcot. Like, you did not like,
be given other options. Yeah, we've mostly been talking about the Simpsons Ride, but
Yeah.
you did not lead with work. You led with pleasure and fun.
yeah, I mean, Epcot's my favorite. And you guys, I feel like you guys have been doing the Lord's work lately. You've been focusing on a lot of Epcot stuff.
Thank you for noticing. Yes, it's been nice. It's made us feel better.
And and what I'll point out is, pivoting to our subject here a little bit. A thing I love about the France movie is that I think it is the only day one Epcot attraction still open, basically untouched in its original form.
Ooh,
Right.
probably. I mean,
Right.
like little updates to American Adventure and stuff. So
American Adventure is close because you have you've got who do they add lately? Bill Cosby, Jeffrey Epstein, whoever they've added.
It is all bad.
It
It's
is. Yeah, it is that.
Wheaties box, the end of that thing. Whoever they add, the end of American Adventure is going to be some sort of sex criminal within. It was like Lance Armstrong, Bill Cosby. It was an unbelievable run of monsters.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, Zuckerberg isn't a sex monster, but he's a different
Yeah, I mean,
a monster in other
people
ways.
like Neil deGrasse Tyson's kind of that came and went a little bit. Elon Musk is on. There's a lot of people who are like, I don't know,
Noted American Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, right.
not a good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. They should just stick with like Kermit the Frog at this point, or so.
Play it safe.
It's just
yeah.
It's a curse, really, to end up in that montage. Yeah.
Like when as an adult, when I go to Epcot, I do gravitate towards the things that are similar to they were before. I try not to be, a nostalgist completely, but your Spaceship Earths,
Mm-hmm.
the land, things where the rides are recognizable from where they were.
Yeah, for sure.
The France movie, which I think I didn't really appreciate when I was a kid. It's not like for kids.
Yeah.
It's I would say like pinnacle of, let's call it, fancy Epcot for the consumer of Epcot.
Right.
It is the same because the China movie changed, Canada movies changed a bunch of times. You know, France holding the torch, basically the same.
Yeah, which is cool to like if what you're after from Epcot is a trip to 1982, which certainly I am as much as possible. This one very much is, and just this literally is a 82 looking movie.
Yeah, it's just got to be one of the only experiences untouched too, just in general, because everything Main Street's different. Everything's like even stuff that looks the same. It is interesting that this didn't have, like, you would think in the 90s they would have had like Richard Karn host something and like do a bad French accent and have like a beret on. Or something. I mean, I guess they would probably go with a real French man. They'd go with a real
Gerard
French guy.
Depardieu, but then they temper it with Richard Karn. Yeah.
Yeah, a side of Richard Karn for the meal.
It has to have, this is what, almost 40 years now at this point. It had to have threaded a particular needle, right? It's like it was just popular enough to stay, but not so popular that they futzed with it in some significant way. They never added, like you're saying, Martin Short, or like they just kind of left it as it is. And it's been, so we'll see. We'll see when that area gets a lot more attention. I got Ratatouille's going to be there around the corner. The thing, it's like baseball or something. Theme park business is a heartbreaking business. The thing you like is going to go away. It's temporary. It could be there for 40 years and it's going to be gone. I know the France movie's not going to be there forever. I can watch the 4K YouTube of it. Great. Not the same, but it is nice that there's one thing that's kind of still in its authentic. Where you guys were talking about, I listened to a little bit of the Living Seas episode. I see the restaurant, the Coral Reef restaurant, is also like pretty untouched from its initial condition.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few places still like that.
But yeah, for all this stuff, it feels like enjoy anything that doesn't feel like it's part of the synergy plan while you can. And I didn't mean to rhyme. I apologize. But like it feels like as if there's no like character, if there's no something, like it's got to be on the chopping block. It's got to be in their heads that like we could get rid of this.
Yeah.
And I have tried, like the last 2 or 3 times I have gone down to Disney World, I've been like, okay, I'm going to do impressions to France. I know I did it a few times when I was younger. I did not have a ton of like big memories of it as a kid, which I'm going to chalk up to that my family always started at Future World and would go clockwise from like Mexico onward, and then would usually eat a large, debilitating meal at Alfredo's. And then would kind of blitz through the last bit of Epcot because we were all very tired from the large pasta meal. And then when I went back as an adult a few times, I would always try to do impressions to France at the end of the day, and they were like, "Oh, the park is closing soon, so we shut it down early. It was not busy tonight." And it's like, okay, all right, the French.
And now it's only open at night. I think I haven't been since they added the Beauty and the Beast thing, but as I understand it, it's Beauty and the Beast during the day, and then at like 4:00 or something, it's adult time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's weird.
I believe
it's an adult
that's correct.
film now.
Something for the parents.
Something for the parents.
I feel like this is a Twitter conversation lately. I, growing up and as an adult, have always been a counterclockwise visitor.
Mm-hmm.
World Showcase. So,
any particular like logic
Canada
there,
first,
if you had to
and
break down the plan?
Yeah.
Huh.
What's what do you like? What is the route then? If you're like, is there something you want to do later? Is there something you want to do, or is there a middle? Is there like food has to be at this one spot?
I think the heart of the food is, well, I think I'd like to hit. You got to time American Adventure because it's like only shows once an hour or something like that. So you got to kind of like keep your eye on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
I think like growing, I was a huge fan of the original Canada movie. Kid, I think my parents both liked it, and so like we were drawn that way. Or we would do this doesn't kind of fit neatly into what we're talking about, but I would juke over to Mexico, go on El Rio de Tiempo or whatever, then we would go back around, do France and Canada, and then make our way around, hit Maelstrom, or etc.
Have you been catching the recent happenings at El Rio del Tiempo? The slow removal of the animatronics. This has been an ongoing drama.
Yeah, because it was so delightful when they added them. They were pretty good animatronics.
Yeah, very much so.
Mexico City scene.
Now they're Donald died at some point, so he became just a potted plant. Am I getting that right? Did it have Donald's hat or something? Or was it just a plant?
A cactus?
A cactus with a sombrero?
With a sombrero, and then it was just, I think, the plant, and then I think it was gone entirely. And then
they
just
removed
this morning, it's cut. It's flats.
They replaced all the robots today or yesterday with just flats of all three characters. So all the robots are gone, even though the other two seemed like they were working fine. And now it's just 3 cardboard cutouts stationary.
I'm assuming because attendance is, I believe, down now that the holidays are over, and that they are doing repair work or something.
Hopefully,
I'm assuming that's not permanent, because it does look like suddenly there is like a a movie billboard or something in the middle of the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe as a classic Epcot fan, maybe they have like a Phantom of the Opera lives in the building and is like Mrs. El Rio de Tiempo, Phantom of
the boat ride.
A Phantom of the El Rio that's trying to like bring it back and destroying the animatronics.
Oh, maybe so. Or like taking them for himself to build his own version or something.
That makes sense. And then tried to get rid of the Judi Dench narration on Spaceship Earth too. Somebody who goes around haunting Epcot trying to remove the newer stuff.
Yeah. Going back to, was it Walter Cronkite? There've been like 4 narrators over the years.
Was Jeremy Irons in there at some point?
Is one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dark, sinister version.
Yes.
Yeah.
Greetings, mortals. I am the Lord thy God, King of the universe, creator of space. We don't need the vocal effects, do we? Is that?
That's my actual voice. Okay, great. Hello, I am the Lord thy God, King of the universe, creator of space and time, or as I prefer to be known these days, at the tweet of God. For over a decade, I've entertained my over 6.2 million followers with my wit, misanthropy, and oft-stated regret I created any and all of you. Well, now I'm taking my hilarious blend of contempt and disgust from the Twitterverse to the podcast verse with my new show, the predictably named Godcast, premiering Wednesday, January 27th on Forever Dog. On Godcast, I'll be opening up my infinite mind about everything from politics to the nature of reality to this week's point spreads to how much longer I'll save the Queen to that weird new growth on your neck. I'll answer prayers, take spiritual phone calls, surprise people with live eternal damnations, justify the platypus, and even explain the Bible, which is not at all easy to do. Plus, every episode, I'll be interviewing a guest, either alive, like Stephen Colbert, Zooey Deschanel, and Lin-Manuel Miranda, or dead, like Moses, Amelia Earhart, and Lizzie Borden. Joining me for it all will be my adorable sidekick, the 18 to 34 demo appealing Joan of Arc.
Hi, God.
Hi, Joan. You excited for the show?
Sure am. Hey, could you put me out now?
Not now, maybe soon.
Sounds great.
New episodes of Godcast will premiere every Wednesday, so be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or you can, and will, go to hell. Godcast, from the creator of At the Tweet of God, and everything else.
Is there one? Speaking of that, of things getting taken out, is there a Epcot removal that makes you the most upset? Is there one that is the most heartbreaking in the whole history?
I mean, definitely Horizons. That was always my number one. Yeah, that one. It also just felt like so unnecessary. You hear stories there was a sinkhole or something. You talked about this in a previous episode, but yeah, I mean, I will say that I was never a huge Journey into Imagination guy, but that was such a downgrade. It felt like for no reason. Yeah, those would be the primary. I do. You guys talked about this a week or two ago, but I do miss the ride part of Living Seas was great.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Sure. I'm sounding like a real guy that just wants everything to stay the same, and I get that, but
Well, with Epcot though, for the most part, you don't end up with that, you know, like the Frozen is one thing. Frozen is like, let's put a new property in there that younger people want to see. I get the business logic of that, certainly, whether or not you like the ride. The other ones are like, what if we replace a ride with a worse ride that also is an IP and that is like sleepy and has less stuff in it?
Like the painting in the church where they like make the Jesus's face terrible or something. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah,
right.
They just took a beautiful picture, Renaissance painting, and just made it kind of like a emoji version or something.
yeah. Big time.
I would say the Frozen one is one where I was annoyed, like I always am when they change anything, but like I had to be like, yeah, this is good. They did a good job with this.
Sure.
Features a thing like a kid would like, which is reasonable enough.
Right.
You at least see, yes, a child, like someone would like this, whereas Journey and some of these other things, I mean, Mission Space, I think people would like if it didn't like hurt you.
If it didn't almost, like leave me with a feeling of like my chest is about to cave in.
Yes, my brain doesn't feel great.
It was real. I walked around World Showcase in a daze after doing it for the first time. It was crazy.
And then if you turn your head to the side, forget it. You're out for a couple days.
I don't think I did it. I don't even think I did that, and it was awful.
The optics of removing Horizons, like as Epcot was the center of the Millennium Celebration festivities at Epcot, is still so wild to me. I mean, I know I talked about it on the episode.
Yeah, it's a real kick in the groin. Yeah, just like, oh, the future's over. Forget about it.
Yeah, this is the end of the future. And it's like, no, the end of the future comes in 2001. Don't worry about that. Optimism will go away, but we're getting an early start on it.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So impressions de France. I mean, let's say some basics about this unchanged remnant of Epcot 82. So if for anyone listening who doesn't go see the movies very frequently, in World Showcase with all the different country pavilions, there's films, I believe, in Canada and in China, and those are 360-degree films, which we've talked about so sparingly. I feel like the Circle Vision 3D, or 360 rather, where there's screens all around you. I think 9 screens, and you stand with railings to watch the movies, which is that was always a roadblock for me, and maybe my parents too. Maybe just me as like a perpetually lazy kid with weak chicken legs. I just got so tired always and did not want to stand against those railings. So maybe I kind of did like Impressions de France for that reason. You could actually sit. This was not a movie that's all the way around you, but it is 5 screens, which
200
gives you
degrees.
200 degrees. Yeah, so a little more than half. So you can look all the way to the side, and there is stuff. And seemingly that was the intent, that like there's maybe even the thought that this was going to be a 360 movie also, but I think to make it a more elegant, stately affair where you could actually sit in a more traditional theater, they opted for the 5 screens.
360, like I feel like in concept is better maybe than execution. Like it's cool that you could look forward and back, but it's like kind of, I don't know, it's like kind of too much sometimes.
It feels like if
you're supposed to be looking, right?
Right, exactly.
Everyone's always looking the same way, and then you look behind you, it's like, yeah, it's the scenery going away from me.
Exactly.
It is, yeah. I would say that like, there is a tradition of like in all the Disney parks and other places, there's the movie attraction is always weird because you go to this place and you're supposed to walk around and get in the thing where you just go in and watch a movie, basically. What's interesting to me about Impressions de France, once again, the survivor, the one that's been around the longest, is it's not 3D, it's not a 360 movie, it's kind of just a movie. It has lasted a long time.
Which they don't often. Yeah.
Sort of like a Cinerama movie. When they bring back Cinerama movies at the Cinerama Dome here in LA, like kind of technology, which was the precursor to IMAX movies and stuff like that. So it's like not just on a normal screen, but it's a little less gimmicky than some of the other.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting. It's beautiful, vistas and countrysides and castles and abbeys. Like it is, I think, justified in why they did this. Though that begs the question, like, why didn't they just do Cinerama? I was.
Well, I would say the thing that hasn't occurred to me until now, like really the most similar, what's the opposite of a precursor thing after this that it reminds me of is Soaring Over California.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a screen, it's scenes of a very specific place. It's California, not France, and it's like just low concept. It's like there's not a lot of narration. It's just cool and pretty to look at.
Right. And
just
movement. I mean,
cuts,
this is
no
obviously
transitions.
you're moving with, and you're moving over hills. You're moving in a lower, smaller scale too, on like a cart. So like it's also it's trying to do a little ride stuff as well. It just didn't have a theater or a ride vehicle that reacted with it yet.
This is around the country. Like it starts in the north, and you go to the south, and you go to Paris at the end. There's kind of like you could, if you think about it, you can kind of try to find like a little structure to it.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, it's just like a nice, almost 20 minutes long. Just
the first
travelogue.
I was rewatching this, and the first thing I was like, man, this looks better than like everything I watch now. This looks so good.
Yeah.
What great quality this is. Like I was like, I could watch this all day.
Beautiful.
Like, it must have been so expensive to make.
Yes.
They didn't have like every one of those flying shots had to be with a full like helicopter with, what is it, 5 cameras attached to the bottom of it. I mean,
5 cameras, and then like whatever mechanism that you needed to sync it all up and keep it all on the same level. Like technology had to be invented to be able to
cameras, like each one with like its own film cartridge going that had to be perfectly timed. I mean, it's just.
Which aren't like shooting film remains very difficult. I think was very difficult at the time. I listened to a podcast interview with the director of this, Rick Harper, who explains how they didn't really have like a way to watch it. Like you couldn't like there was not a very good viewfinder to see what you were even getting while going to these like very hard to get to settings and getting up on helicopters. Like he used the phrase, or is it like we had the vibration detector. Like instead you couldn't see if it was level or shaking or not. You just had to see, is the vibration detector going off? It's real like NASA kind of stuff.
That sounds fascinating. Like I've, in anticipation of doing this today, I watched there's a great YouTube, pretty high quality version of it. And I noticed a couple things. One is that you can tell like they shot a few of the scenes on the same day, because the first thing, you're on this kind of rocky coastline, which according to Wikipedia is Normandy, like northern France, like on the coast that, abuts England and all that stuff. And then you see that landscape in a couple other shots that aren't about that at all. Like, so there's these like fishermen walking with like fishing crates and stuff. Mm-hmm. And you can see that the coast that we just saw at the very beginning of the movie, this is like halfway through in the background, and there's a church on top of this cliff. And then I think a little bit after that, there's this great shot of this old couple walking along the rocky cliffs next to a church. That's that church. So line producer brain, you're like, like they got a bunch of pieces of it that day while they had all their stuff there. And then they kind of, made it look like a bunch of different things.
Sure. That's interesting.
That would be interesting to see. I assume there would be an appetite, and I'm not being facetious, there would be an appetite to see like shot list days for shooting of Impressions de France, and we could get like 2 episodes out of it if we could find this.
Yeah.
It's the thing I would bid on and spend a lot of money on.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's crazy auction.
Sure.
I was just so delighted. Like even the smaller scale stuff. Like when I realized what the flower cart, it was like, they just put the cameras on the cart. This is delightful. Like this is so charming.
Yeah, those little foreground flowers. It's pretty cute.
There is like a nice it feels nice like slice of life feeling in this, and I was thinking like. I think it's pretty popular, like trends on YouTube of just walking tours of cities. So like I've been doing that. I've been watching like 20-minute videos of people walking through Tokyo because we went there a couple years ago and we loved it. But I was like, well, these are just longer form versions of Impressions de France. It's just the same. Like it's the same, but you're getting like snippets as opposed to like truly like 40 minutes kind of getting lost and like, oh, look that's a street.
Yeah, and it's long enough, and you're out all day in Florida. It's hot, and you're in this little nice, cool room for 20 minutes. It very really transports you.
Yeah, it is. It's like VR. It's like a VR. It's precursor to VR in a way.
Oh, with the wraparound.
I was drawing a parallel to like World's Fair stuff. Like, to me, it really reminds me of like the great IMAX movies. Another thing that I love, and IMAX movies were developed for the Montreal Expo of '67, and it's like these movies that these days we watch. They'll have like on PBS they'll show like Flying Over England or something like that, but that style of movie was really designed to show off the technology. So it was like designed to show off new cameras and the fact that you could attach a camera to the bottom of an airplane, and it was designed to be experienced in a special setting, like a theme park or a fair.
Right.
Yeah.
To go back to Simpsons Ride, is that like was that crazy for you to get to do, like, because that room is meant for it's a like pretty insane format that can only
it's an OmniMax screen.
Like that.
And the OmniMax screen is a curved IMAX screen, in case people don't know. So like, it's why if you these days when they'll show like a normal movie like Dark Knight or whatever in an IMAX theater, they usually show it in a normal IMAX screen because it's flat. Whereas an OmniMax screen is like the shape of like a contact lens. And so it kind of distorts a lot of the images, but gives you the feeling of like being sucked into the picture. But that's the reason, for example, the Simpsons Ride couldn't be 3D, which is a question we would get a lot. You can't do a 3D OmniMax.
Interesting.
Just like
which is why Soarin' is also Soarin' over California.
Right. Oh, yeah, because that's not 3D.
It's an OmniMax.
Same format. Right. Is that also why it's the characters are it's all done in 3D as opposed to 2D, where I imagine like doing the curvature doesn't make any sense?
I don't know how that's an interesting question. I don't remember why that decision was made. I guess it was like if you blew up 2D animation that big, it wouldn't look immersive or something like that. It'd just be a lot of like big blocks of like Homer Simpson's big yellow head.
Oh, sure. So like sort of oddly simple image for.
Like, it needs dimension, I guess. It just inherently needs dimension. Like a 3D model needs, like if something's 3D, it'll look like flat or something.
This was an interesting tidbit that the guys that knew what they were doing, that helped us kind of come up with what happened in the ride, is that in one of those where you want to simulate motion, it's always better to have something that you're flying behind.
Mm-hmm.
That you're not just like kind of in a vacuum looking out at a nice piece of scenery, but if you're actually tracking something that's in front of you, it's like if you go in, it's why in like the Avatar Flight of Passage, you're following another thing the whole time, because it actually, your eye kind of like looks at the thing ahead of you and it draws your attention to the middle of the screen and kind of gives you, it helps sell the motion. So when you're like you don't want to just like an IMAX screen. If you want it to feel like you're actually moving, it helps to have like some kind of
point,
some kind of moving thing in the middle of it. And so we tried to do, we had Maggie dragging you around, Sideshow Bob, and like all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
The 360 where you flip all the way around while Homer's is in your like being dragged by a rope or something. That's a really amazing part.
That was, I believe, the first time that had ever been done in one of those simulator rides. It was one of the things they were like, oh, let's try to do a barrel roll.
Oh, wow.
A parody of like Waterworld stunt show thing. You actually, I thought it was pretty convincing.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah.
Real quick while we're back, were there any other bigger blue sky things you were like, oh, I wish we could have done this, or like we had this on the drawing board and it didn't quite work?
This is long enough now. Hopefully none of this is stuff that would get me in trouble. But a big constraint we had was that we only had some of the cast initially. And so that was why we ended up coming around on a Sideshow Bob story, because we didn't have like Harry Shearer, who's who's most of the like the adversaries, like Mr. Burns, which would like drive a theme parky type of story where you'd want like, Mr. Burns is trying to kill you or whatever. We were kind of limited. Luckily, we got Kelsey Grammer, who's Sideshow Bob wanted to do it. So that was sort of the thinking behind that, which I think was great. I mean, he's a very kind of theme park energy, and he's such a great voice actor.
Yeah.
There's a short story by this writer named Stephen Milhauser, who's one of my favorite writers. He wrote a short story called Paradise Park in think the collection is called The Knife Thrower. That it's always been one of my favorite short stories, and it's about like a guy who creates a theme park that's like so messed up that it starts to be dangerous and starts to kill people. Mm-hmm. That was actually a thing that I brought and was like, let's try to do this. Let's have Sideshow Bob messes with the theme park so that it's broken, and you're going through these different things that are parodies of different things at Disneyland and Universal, but it's all falling apart around you. That was the initial idea. So like the fact that, I mean, really, which was just a vehicle for me, honestly, to like create little parodies of like parodies theme park stuff. And then there's this guy, Scott Trowbridge, Disney Imagineer. He did Galaxy's Edge, in charge of that program. He was our like head guy at Universal at the time. He took that idea and kind of like helped us say, okay, here's what that could look like. There could be a thing that's kind of like Parts of the Caribbean, and we could do a big fall. And he helped us like beat it out into a real.
Oh, and like what they can, like, here's the gags to say, here's the stuff we know we can pull off.
Yeah, and it's like things that we could sell with motion. So it's like, it's good to like, because you don't want it to be the same thing time and again. So like you should do a thing where you're going backwards, and you should do a thing where there's a big fall, and a thing where we can spray water at you and stuff like that. But then I think Grading or somebody was like, well, hey, people are going to want to go to Springfield.
Yeah.
That's like getting to sort of fly through Springfield, like the opening credits. Would be a big thing for people. So that ended up influencing us and became like the second half of the ride is like Maggie drags you through town and you do all this.
I remember the first time going on it, feeling like it certainly didn't occur to me, oh, I wish I was doing Springfield stuff. But when there's that reveal and it suddenly feels like the opening sequence, you are like, oh, right, we could do this stuff. And you start to wonder like, oh, will there be kind of a couch scene sort of thing? And then
that was cool. It was a really good idea. It was a real like, hey, do what people want thing. Like, it was like a real fan service moment of like, oh yeah, have your fun with like parodies of like your own up your butt, like favorite moments from theme park history, but like make sure it's so Springfield.
They'd like to see the Quickie Mart.
Yeah, I'm glad.
They would let
people do want to see the things they like.
I was going to do really slow. It was just a parody of each scene from World of Motion. Like it was. That's the version we didn't get to make, but okay, fine. People flying through Springfield. Okay, fine.
It's funny that you bring up like the theme park trope of like, something has gone wrong, because I feel like in literature, like I'm specifically thinking of like George Saunders stories about theme parks. They're like the big one that I think of is literally called Civil War Land in Bad Decline. Like I always wonder, it's like, wait, do you realize that like the stories are always about theme parks falling apart or something going wrong? It's like, do you know this is like a main like plot point in a lot of theme park rides, whether you're criticizing it intentionally or not?
Right, if we knew that or not. Yeah, I mean, I would say that like they actually adapted it into a great ride called Grand Fiesta Tour in Sad Decline, which you can experience right now.
They've not won.
It was really cool of them to just like low key do that and not like announce it as like a big George Saunders thing, but that's pretty cool of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
you know what they're
I don't
doing.
know that it would get them a MacArthur Genius Grant like he received. But
I think there's like a postmodern turn that rides had in like the 90s. Like when people are sick of like these rides are cheesy. Like it's just like no one wants to just like ride through, a bunch of little dolls singing at you or whatever. It's like, yes, that's all anyone wants. But these guys, they got too clever, and everything had to be like, you think it's this, but then it's this other thing. It's a twist. Like the ride breaks, and this is what I'm just describing what we did on the Simpsons Ride. But like that was its own trend that burned out. And what I like about things like, at the end of that era, you have something like Soaring Over California, which is like, there's no concept. It's just like there's no. Oh no, the glider is going to crash into Yosemite or whatever. It's just a thing. It's just a fun experience. It's like of a piece. Right. It's not reminding you that this is like, because I think that rides work better when they're not big, complicated stories. Like you can follow stuff, but like no one's like, oh man, I wish, or I don't think they are. Like I wish Pirates of the Caribbean was more like of a tracking characters and stuff. And when they do that, it's like lame. It's it's more like a song. Like you don't want. You ever listen to like a story song? One of those like 8-minute like Johnny Cash things? You're like, ugh. I hear it once, it's fine. I know what happens. The guy like shoots the guy and gets hung or whatever. It's just like the songs you listen to a million times are more vague. They're just like general to give you a feeling. And I feel like that's another thing about Impressions of France. It's not a story. It's just a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about like especially pre-shows, and like Avatar on Flight of Passage is awesome, but the pre-show, there's like 3 rooms and there's just so much explanation of what you're doing and why you're standing there and what they're scanning you for and what you're gonna, versus like Big Thunder where it's like, here we go, we're riding a train.
And then once you get on the ride itself, it's unbelievable. You get on a Flight of Passage, but there's no story at all. You're just flying around. It's great.
Right.
You sort of didn't need to know any of that. I'm not sure any of that.
I think it's like they just want to give you something to do because the line is long. And so they have like, they make you, sit in 3 rooms. We did this. There's 2 full pre-shows on the Simpsons Ride for the same reason. It's like, to divide you into little groups so that you can go into a place and like, you don't have to sort that all out at the last. It's all like crowd management. Yeah. But like, I wish they would just put up a blank screen and you just look at your phone or something. It would be better.
Well, that's it.
Dinosaur. Oh, you got 2 movies about this, and you're going to look at dinosaurs.
Yeah, but The Simpsons feels like, I mean, The Simpsons has that the ride. You guys have that narrative, a little of like Bob and everything, but also it's just like the pre-show room is you get to see Patty and Selma in a booth goofing, like everyone's goofing around versus you're getting information shouted at you that's like important.
Danny Chun, longtime Simpsons writer at the office, bunch of her stuff. He was sort of in charge of that part of the writing. Mm-hmm. And it was fun to do that. It was like picking the characters. It did give us, I will say, like the script for the whole ride ended up being about 35 pages long. Maybe the ride script, and we just, just write the final draft like a normal script. But the ride itself is maybe 7 pages long, but then, there's like 20, there's 2 full long, there's more than a full Simpsons episode worth of writing and animation in the pre-show to that ride, because
the several rooms and all the characters.
Yeah, but that one is also it was like we were kind of stuck with the infrastructure of Back to the Future, so it was like you couldn't just like change the structure of the rooms and stuff. You knew like, okay, we need something that's exactly the same length as this thing, and then you have to go into this room.
Oh yeah, did you have to watch like this Doc and Biff thing and go, okay, so it's got to be sort of equivalent to this, at least time and maybe feel
I think the timing was more important, like because whatever the timing of the ride was, that's the key thing. It was like 4 minutes or something.
Yeah,
you have to. Each of the things before that has to be exactly that length so that everything can turn over at the same time.
Right.
So I'm sure that like Flight of Passage is the same way, but like. Whatever the length of time is it takes to get all the people in and like, sit in the things and stick their head in the hole.
You've got to cover that.
The length of the ride has to be the exact length of the pre-show. Or
Sure. Which is maybe why Avatar is so crazy.
Yeah.
Pre-show
it's complicated. Plus, hopefully they're hosing down those little glory holes you stick your head in or whatever.
Oh yeah, because right now,
give them 10 seconds to do something.
Can you believe people are doing that right now? Like, there's people on that ride as we're all holed up in our places forever.
Well, and you'll be happy to know they've recently increased capacity. So,
How weird is it right now to go into one of those rooms where they're scanning you for viruses or germs?
You all have it.
You all have it. Shake off. Move your body around.
Yeah, move your body around. Some of you are asymptomatic. Now, we can't tell which of them.
Yeah, that's odd. That's odd, I'll say.
You can go do that right now if you want.
Right now.
But Impressions de France, you can spread out a little. It's a theater. The Palais du Cinéma.
It's probably not full.
I'm a big... Remember movie theaters? You go... Remember that?
Yes.
Kinda.
For the audience doesn't remember that. This used to be a thing pre-COVID. You go to a movie theater and watch things. Impressions of France, because it doesn't have a lot of dialogue, it has that phenomenon you get in movie theaters when you're there during the day and there's a lot of old people. They want to talk through the whole thing. So I would say that even in particular, there's something about sitting down, you're watching the nice scenery. Maybe there's an old lady that speaks a few words of French. She wants to use them. She wants to impress the other old people that she's with in the movie. It was one of the most talked through film experiences you can have, to the point where I'm a big guy. Drives my wife crazy. I'll just get up. I'll move. Like, I'm not a shusher. I just very showily get up walk down, move a couple rows back. Maybe I'll make a big or whatever.
I do that. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'll do it multiple times in the same movie. In the Impressions of France Theater, it's nice as it's a big, not usually that packed. Bad news for the movie, probably going away someday. But I will move around multiple times to get away from the like, oh, that's Paris. That's Notre Dame. It's like everyone wants to show off that they went to Paris one time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
God bless, I get it, but it's a noisy experience.
That kind of goes. I mean, really, I think we've mostly talked about it on the Haunted Mansion episode. People that want to talk, that's a different thing, talking along with it. But I think in general, all three of us are no talking. Don't talk, please don't. And I think that's controversial. And I remember us saying that, and I think some people were like, "But I like to talk. I like to do it."
Like 3 minutes.
I don't want to, yuck anyone's yum here. Like, if you want to talk, great. I'm just, as long as the theater is big enough that I can move.
Sure.
Then go nuts.
Yeah, and I don't think people were talking about like, oh, I want to talk along to Impressions de France. I think that's probably a smaller amount of people.
Another thing. I don't know that anybody's ever. I was watching again to see if anything jumped out at me. Has anybody ever noticed that? I'm pretty sure that they had to like paint out a lady's boobs in a scene. There's a scene where you're on a dock it's on like the French Riviera, and there's a bunch of sunbathers. You can't really see it on the YouTube, but it always jumped out at me in the theater. There's a woman in the kind of, I would say, like facing the screen, upper left hand, laid out on a thing, wearing a blue bathing suit that is clearly painted in later. Like she was clearly just a woman. It's France, right? I mean, that's part of the French experience. Topless lady, young woman, just a blue block, like an old, an old computer graphics thing where you just like draw a little outline of something and fill it in with a blue paint can to cover up this nice young lady's.
Does it wobble when it moves? Does it like not follow exactly right?
I tried to see it today on the 4K whatever YouTube video someone took, and I know where it is, so I know where to look for it. But it won't jump out at you if you see it in the theater. Have listener, someone go rush to the theater. Be safe. To the woman, you will see is blue, like a bright blue block where nudity was supposed to be.
Wow.
I mean, I'm glad they got.
Was there that day? The woman on the beach listening. Let us know.
Yeah, we'll have her on.
If you're hearing this, I'm glad they got that, because topless sunbathing, I feel like, is a national pastime for France, just like smoking cigarettes and having toured affairs. And those they can't really put into this movie. Like, there's a wedding in this movie. I guess because there's the big abbey in this movie, the abbey that's hard to access.
In the back of my mind, I think I used that wedding reception in the France movie as like an image I wanted during my actual wedding. Like, I remember asking for the lighting, and I wanted the lighting to look exactly like that, where it's outside, there's string lights over it, everybody's having a nice time.
It felt, it's very like cinema and very like.
Like, obviously, I'm a big fan of this thing. I will say one thing: I don't think this is like on the Wikipedia page or anything for this Simpsons episode. I pulled a music cue from Impressions de France and used it in a Simpsons episode. It's in the episode A Totally Fun Thing Bart Will Never Do Again, which is the episode where the Simpsons go on a cruise.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see, like the way to look up that. The song is called Rondo by Francois, Adrian, Waldieu.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most obscure song in Impressions of France. I always liked it. There's a scene where they're going on a cruise, and we had this really dramatic shot flying over a cruise ship to show how cool it is. And I was like, oh, this is like that scene where they're flying over the castle in Impressions de France. So I was like, I want that exact song. And so this was great. It was another like real, like, I can't believe this is happening moment. Because The Simpsons at that time was scored by a live orchestra. Mm-hmm. They had to actually find the music, get the orchestra, and it's a really hard song too. So like, it's like a really like challenging piece of classical music. And so they had to learn it. And then later in the episode, the cruise ship, it goes bad. Like they're stuck on it for a really long time. And so they do another flyover where it looks, to compare it to earlier. and the composer redid that song from the France movie is like a janky, like messed up version to show crappy instruments.
Whoa.
Check it out.
Jeez. That's amazing. And also, did you just manage to break a piece of trivia that is not archived by Simpsons fans online?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody...
That might be the only piece of info that people don't know like that.
Did you get to go and watch the orchestra do it?
I didn't see that one. I had been there other times. It was cool. They would just like, they didn't like do it right next to where we were writing. So we didn't I think at one time I went to go see it. Since then, they've stopped doing it because it was unbelievable. The only shows ever that would do this were Lost and The Simpsons. And it's just like you picture in a movie, like there's a giant sound stage with the whole orchestra and like guy and everything. It was really cool.
Yeah.
And I guess over 30 years of The Simpsons, they got enough music cues now that they don't need a bunch of new ones.
That's fair. Are there any other little theme park tidbits you've snuck in other places that people wouldn't know?
In that same that was the last episode ever for The Simpsons. It was sort of my place to try to pack in all the things that I liked. I don't think it really worked. I did try to there's a thing where they're stuck. This is once again, they're stuck on a cruise ship for a long time. They think the world has been destroyed by a viral outbreak. So very prescient. Not so prescient that I thought a cruise ship would be the safest place to be.
Oh yeah, right.
Where the episode goes, but in the episode, Lisa decides like medieval monks preserve culture for the posterity now that the world is gone. And so there is a part where you pan across a bunch of monks, and I showed them the monks in Spaceship Earth, and I said I want it to look like this. I want one of the monks to be asleep on the book. I want it to look exactly like Spaceship Earth. And they were just like, no time for all this. At a certain point, I think they're right. At a certain point, they were like, hey man, enough with this.
Satisfying fetishes, essentially.
Yeah. That is
their orchestra to play a song from Impressions de France.
Sure. God, that's amazing.
This is making me think about, though, there's a certain time frame of Simpsons episodes where there's some California adventure digs in there. Was that you?
Oh.
No, that was Al Jean. Okay. He's like, he really, I think it comes from a place of love. Like he had a really in for any time. Like, he was back in the day, there were a lot of Euro Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sure. Al really, I think he held the Eisner era to a very high standard and was disappointed when it fell short, I guess is the one way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Because he loves Disneyland, but just like the other lesser imitations of Disney parks.
Yeah.
He has it up for.
Wow. Interesting.
Not wrong. I know what he's saying.
Real quick, I'll say I did search and see how many listeners we may have from France.
Oh,
yes. You can do that on our analytics.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, this is, I think, just in the last month, and this is like amount of listens, I think we might have 43 listeners.
Wow.
That's not bad. Yeah, that's
or maybe
good. One of them is going to be a guy from this bit who's in the movie, like the guy with the grapes on his head, or like somebody.
The topless woman.
Topless woman,
maybe the
guy
woman.
with grapes on his head, the groom, so many.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, a lot of possibilities. So, yeah, if you were in it and you're alive still, tell us your story.
Right.
If you are a listener from France, do you think the French Pavilion should be the one place in park in Walt Disney World where you could still smoke cigarettes? Like in the pastry shop, in the movie theater? I mean, I'm just saying, like limited time magic, maybe,
Nude sunbathing. Like they have a more French experience when you're there.
Sure. you do it in the courtyard. You drop the kids around the corner at Ratatouille. I mean, I'm optimistic for Ratatouille because I think when they do insert character or when they do put more intellectual properties into the parks, I think usually when they start from scratch, it's more successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like they've done a good job at matching the architecture of the French Pavilion.
I was just thrilled that they left the movie in place.
Yes,
that's what I was worried about.
They did. I looked it up on the app. Your current option to see the movie, you have a small window from 6:30 to 7:45. So I guess that's
what
3 showings, 4 maybe if they squeeze.
Wait, 2 because they have.
Yeah,
God, this is it, guys. This is the last day. Like we got to get people in there to get some turnstile or something. This is not looking good.
But they just upconverted it to 4K. So, I mean, that's
Go
the
see
nice
that
thing about
4K.
shooting on film. It's easier to up convert.
I see which way the wind is blowing here. I mean, maybe it's the kind of thing where they do a special, like the way they bring back the California movie,
Right.
In the theater where it's usually soaring around the world.
Yeah.
It could be that kind of thing. Like, I always think that they have all these movies
Right.
that they've banked over the years that they could bring back and people would like them. Maybe no one cares.
It's unclear
Well,
as
I
to what
think-
you do with them. Your magic
There's, Magic
and
Journey.
such.
There's all these like
Right.
old weird.
It would be nice, just like, I mean, in this spot, I mean, it seems like easy enough to just put a different movie in. So yeah, it would be nice and different, like a theater like this to show. I mean, not this France one, but like in a place in the parks to be able to show old stuff once in a while. I mean, it's like they have retro nights at Disneyland, and
And they pretty easily brought back Captain EO back, and they can
sure.
Yeah.
So they can convert, the new French Mandalorian goes to France short into this later at night for 30 minutes once in a while.
Yeah, because they should bring back, like, I don't know if the audience is familiar with this. There's some really weird theme park movies they used to make. Like, if you ever watched Magic Journeys, it is one of the weirdest, and this was in a theme park, it is one of the weirdest, like, fever dream, like, acid trip, bizarre, spooky
Sort of
things.
dark
You can find
and
it on
scary.
YouTube. It was a 3D movie. It was at Imagination. It was all over the place. I remember as a kid being like, even as a kid, I was like, I don't want to be an adult anymore. This is, what is this? There was like a movie called Symbiosis that they showed at that was in the land.
The land. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? What happened in Symbiosis?
It was the thing that preceded the like Timon and Pumbaa movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the carpeted wall is kind of. Anyway, it was like a really scary movie about like pollution and the environment being destroyed, and so like there's all these movies that there's at least a couple weirdos out there that would
Yeah.
need to see them. Throw them up in like the Odyssey or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
That's perfect. That seems good, unless they're going to demolish it. But yeah, if that would be a great spot for
Well,
it.
you got
I'm looking through
the Journey
Magic-
Theater also, which what if they just like
Oh,
said
yeah.
by day, like at 10:30 we're showing Magic Journeys, at 12 we're showing Symbiosis. You just like shuffled all the. If they're gonna bring back Retro Epcot, just make that the Retro Epcot Theater.
I would be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did it in California Adventure. They stuck Seasons of the Vine into the Blue Sky Cellar for a little while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if I remember correctly, they had Seasons of the Vine featuring our friend Jeremy Irons, a dark look at a year in California winemaking. It was in the Body Wars building during
Right.
the Food and Wine Festival. They would say they bring these things back sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
There's some venue repurposing. What were you saying, Mike?
Oh, I was just saying I just quickly Googled also Magic Journeys, and you're like, it is bringing back. I do remember this, and it's like there's like an evil circus in it.
It will blow. It is so weird.
Yeah.
It may be the weirdest thing that's ever been an attraction at a Disney theme park. You can watch the whole thing's on YouTube. It's disturbing.
Epcot is so. I mean, we've talked about this in our Epcot. So it's so traumatizing for kids, and it's so odd, and it's like they were trying to do so much different that they just got. Yeah.
The thing I was thinking about, like, what why do I still years later still care about it? But as a kid, I was a kid in Ohio. You forget that Epcot is fancy. It's like it's the fancy theme park for fancy boys and fancy girls. Like, you go. I was a fancy little boy. I wanted to go, and you learn about France, and you see all these different countries, and like it really affected me. Like it's the futuristic part definitely affected me my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I still like. I'm like, my dream house is like the house in Horizon, like the city apartment that the grandparents live in. I'm like, that's what I'm a
amen,
real
yeah.
estate agent. This is what I want. Like, it affects you when you're a kid, and these things stick with you. And like, and I think that like the World Showcase part of it, it's like all these kids all over the country, making fun of like, oh, Epcot's so lame and whatever. But like, I think a certain percentage of kids go there, and it messes with their brain, and they're like, I want to go to all these countries. I want this kind of fancy experience as an adult.
Yeah, I think you have to be like, because I liked Epcot a lot as a kid. I probably was not that into World Showcase. I was probably like, I needed some stimuli.
Yeah, same.
A movie. Yeah, like a movie wasn't going to, of pleasantness is like, oh, okay, yeah, but where's the robot? Show me the robot. But it definitely it definitely feels like a field trip. Some of it feels like a field trip. And that's a good thing as you get older, because you just want a nice, pleasant experience. And it is fun to learn, actually. I like to learn here and there. If I remember it, that's a different story. But I'm sure it's a specific type of kid that goes to Epcot and all of it.
I would argue, having been to some of the countries that the Epcot pavilions are based on, that some of the experiences are very, very similar to really being. Like if you go to that gift shop in the Japan pavilion, that is very much like being in actual Japan. Like that, it's like there's plenty of stores that have that feel. Like if you're just from a normal town in America, it's a pretty good simulation of being in some of these places. And at the very least, like it'll give you a little bug where you're like, okay, when I grow up, sure, yeah, I want to go to.
Have you also then been annoyed by like there's like the feeling of like, well, World Showcase, it's just plastic Europe. Like why avoid like go to the real thing? Why would you not? And I feel like people know what World Showcase.
Yeah, it's like watching a movie and being like, that's a set. That's not. It's like, yeah, dude, that's what it is.
They're not trying to like get you to not travel the world. If anything, they want you to travel the world after you.
They don't think you're a caveman that thinks you've gone through a time portal to France. Like, yeah, it's the same. Also, like, yeah, go to Europe. That's a very theme park like experience too. The real one. It's like,
Yeah. It also discounts that like there's also like dumb stuff to do in Europe and Japan and stuff. Like it's as if it's all a cultural enriching experience. Like that's why I go to the places for the dumb stuff mixed with some enriching stuff.
Right.
This is reminding me, all this talk about like the impressions to France is so ethereal. It really does remind me a lot of like early, like in film school, they would show us like not exactly Kundun, but like stuff like that, where it's like, this is a movie made of just visuals and music, visuals and audio, and you can tell a story with visuals and audio. And I'm now realizing, like, I was like, okay, yeah, got it. Sounds good. This feels very familiar to me. And I'm wondering if that's because I watched all these Epcot movies so many times, as opposed to like some classmates who are like, I can't wrap my head around this.
Yeah, like the history of travelogue movies. I mean, like, there's all this. There was a great one I saw recently that I'm sure there's some sort of like connection to like some of the people who worked on one of the Epcot movies. It was the first Imax movie, which was if you look at pictures of the big Buckminster Fuller sphere at the Montreal Expo in 1967, that's still up, is an IMAX theater. It was built for that World's Fair. The first IMAX theater ever made, I think. In this movie, it's called, what's it called? North of Superior. It's just like a tour of Canada, like forests and stuff. Anyway, it's on YouTube. They posted like a Toronto Film Festival did a retrospective of the director or something, and it's all there. It is so the DNA of this sort of grand spectacle, soaring music and flying around, and that I think probably goes back to like travelogue movies from the early days of movies when it was just like a way to get to see a place that you'd never been before. Mm-hmm. It's probably one of the earliest uses of movies was to just, show you stuff you couldn't see otherwise.
Take you to a place.
Yeah.
Which you sort of take for granted with stuff like this, with these early Epcot movies, like how that, travel wasn't as easy and technology wasn't as advanced. And now that cameras can be very small and get to obscure places, like to do the work and to take a 500-pound rig up into the sky or into a balloon or into the Eiffel Tower, like, yeah, there's an appeal to this, I think, that feels very National Geographic, or like that it's still cool to watch now, but you have to think about how in 82 it was like really remarkable and truly taking people to places they maybe couldn't go.
Well, and does follow like the Disney nature or Disney's like travelogue. I feel like Disney doesn't, it's like almost as an afterthought, they dump this like archive stuff on Disney Plus. We're like, yeah, we have National Geographic too. We bought that. But it's like, well, that's kind of was one of your core things for a long time.
And I think that they won like Oscars and stuff for those short movies.
Oh yeah, the Earth Day, the short ones, and then the Earth Day ones that they put out every year.
But like back in the 50s and late 40s,
oh yes,
they innovated all this like camera technology. I think Seal Island or like some old Disney movie won an Oscar. There's a really messed up one. I think it's on Disney Plus. Some someone posted there. It's called Perry. It's a narrative live action about the life of a squirrel in the forest. It's pretty good, but there's a thing that is one of the trippiest, weirdest things where the squirrel has a dream, and they actually shoot in live action the squirrel going through like a fantasy sequence of like crazy dream stuff, but with a real squirrel. Check it out.
Whoa.
It's great, but it's like the ways that they combine they still found like weird Disney-ish ways to zazz up like a documentary that's just like animals walking around. This is by far the weirdest.
Wow.
I think is the name of it. Check it. It's
wow,
and it's on Disney Plus.
I think it's on Disney, but you can. I saw it in like Turner Classic one time. They did when they used to do those like obscure Disney thing nights.
Mm-hmm. Just sitting there with no indication that it's bizarre and has a squirrel.
Yeah, I mean, you don't watch the whole thing. You sit through a lot of just like a squirrel eating a nut and all that stuff. Which God bless if that's your thing. But there's a dream sequence about 2/3 of the way through.
Huh? It was like the WandaVision of its day, with a trippy.
Can I point out something? So though we've been talking about how this thing is very like impressionistic and it's mainly music and visuals. There is sparing narration. Let's not forget about that. You do have the "My Franz wakes up at the,"
which is a little hard to decipher in the YouTube clips. Some of the narration, the accent's a little thick, and an iPhone or a GoPro is not the best way to capture.
Sort of impossible by the time it's translated several mediums. Yeah. Here's something that I was wondering. Me not being a terribly cultured person, I was thinking like, well, is this whoever's narrating this is probably like one of the great French actors, right? And I'm a fool for not knowing who it is. And then I looked up the name Claude Gobet, and I'm like, well, of course, he's probably. I'm going to look at this IMDb, and there's going to be 100 entries, and this is going to go and go and go. And could I not know the great Gobet? It turns out that this is one of only 2 credits for this actor, and the other credit is a film from 1977. The film is called Chatterbox. This is a film mainly starring Rip Taylor. And it is a movie. Chatterbox refers to there's a woman who, after an unsatisfying sexual encounter, her vagina comes to life and reviews the performance of the man, and you follow the rise and fame of her vagina, Virginia the Talking Vagina.
Wow!
I was not familiar with Chatterbox before.
They saw that and we're like, we've got the guy.
Disney.
The only one, but we have all the great French actors lined up.
But only the guy who plays only the guy who plays the maitre d with 2 lines in Chatterbox the Talking Vagina movie can
Rip Taylor had a conflict, so they could not get him.
I guess so. And it really is just like the woman comes in, can I have a table for 2? Yes. Wait a minute, are you the owner of Virginia the Talking Vagina? It's truly, that's all it is.
Wow.
So Claude Gobet, one of the stranger filmographies, Claude Gobet.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And check out several Perry and Chatterbox, which is on Amazon Prime, actually, as is a lot of bizarre old junk. So
what a double feature.
Oh yeah. Plan a little night for yourself.
Was that the only time that Talking Vagina character appeared, or did they spin the vagina off at all, or
into Virginia Vision or something? Yeah,
Vagina Vision.
It was up in Magic Journeys in the circus scene.
Okay.
There's a brief cameo at Magic Journeys. I do want to mention some of the soundtrack stuff. And okay, there's Matt, you mentioned the kind of obscure song in the soundtrack. There is a song that recurs in the soundtrack, and I looked up the name because I never knew the name of this song, and it is called Aquarium from the suite The Carnival of Animals by, I'm going to try, Camille Saint-Saëns. And I just know it as the spooky wonder music. Like, it doesn't play after the Amblin logo, but it plays after people's movies who have been called, like, the next Spielberg. Like, every kids movie of like
we use it
in the
all the
Beast.
time. Yeah, it's a very common. You hear it all. It's very spooky. It's a great song.
Yeah, and it's great in this. I mean, but I just couldn't. I was like, oh my god, that song. I immediately just had to react. Every kind of like the Indian in the cupboard kind of children's movie, I feel like at some point uses that song.
Yeah, there's another one. It's once again, I don't speak French. Sorry, guys. Gymnopédie by Eric Satie is in there. That's in a ton of movies. Like the version that's in Impressions of France is like, I think orchestrated, where it's a piano song, but it's in like Royal Tenenbaums. It's in so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
The songs at the end of this movie, I remember hearing somewhere and being like, "Oh, where's that from?" And then when I put it together, it's the song. It's the called like the Organ Symphony or something in the original version, but the melody of it is the theme from Babe.
Oh.
So it's like over the end of Impressions of France, there's this like organ song. It's like really builds to a big climax, and they show all these different cool shots of the Eiffel Tower and all that stuff. That like a low key version of that song is I'm pretty sure the theme from Babe.
Wow, that's crazy.
Or used a lot, or maybe Babe Pig in the City. One of the Babe.
Right.
The Saint-Saëns, if I'm saying it sort of right. I didn't realize till I looked it up. I never put this together that it's a version of that is the melody from the Space Mountain Dick Dale version. That's what he's playing.
Wow. Right.
Another great piece of theme park music. Yeah. It's like this. It's certainly like rearranged enough. You'd never put that together, but yeah, it's like it's a carnival vibe, I guess. So they used it for that.
The soundtrack notable too for the way Buddy Baker arranged it. He did a number of Disney projects, some of the animated movies. It's the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra playing these arrangements at Abbey Road Studios.
Oh, yeah.
And it was there's a few titles or honorary things that Impressions de France holds. This is the first movie, let me get this right. This is the first movie with a digital soundtrack recorded from beginning to end on a digital recorder. Like there were only 2 Sony digital recorders in the world, and they got the one from Los Angeles to Abbey Road Studios to record this.
Whoa. How crazy.
Wow.
Which I guess is just part of the like technology boom that was going on, because they wanted to show off so much technology like in all of these movies at Epcot. So there was a lot at their disposal. That's pretty crazy.
The other title it holds from the Guinness World Records people. This is again very specific. This is the longest running daily screening of a film in the same theater.
Oh,
so.
I guess what else would it be?
How long?
That makes sense.
Is anything ever going to beat it?
35 years, I believe. Like 80, they're counting 82 to 2017, I think, when it shut down.
Sing Along with Belle will, in the 2080s or something like that.
It's there to stay. But let's talk about that, because so they have started, all right, during the day, mostly you go, and it is this Beauty and the Beast sing-along thing. Has anybody done it for any reason, or learned what it is at all?
I've not done it.
I have not.
Since they allowed it in.
Since it invaded,
it invaded France.
They let the wolf in the hen.
It's all about Eve's story. It's like the newcomer comes and slowly takes away the spotlight until Impressions of France walks into the ocean and drowns to death.
It's an odd. I looked it up, and it's like, so they did get new voiceover from Angela Lansbury, who kind of steps you through the story quickly, but it's this bizarre reimagining of the story where Le Fou, Gaston's friend, was the secret like guardian angel behind everything and was like helping bring Beauty and the Beast together. Like,
oh, wow.
He like helps in the kitchen during Be Our Guest, and he I seem maybe like sews or at least like gets the dress ready, the famous yellow dress.
Like a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern kind of thing.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah.
There
You
go.
didn't see like the true,
Yeah, apparently, which is interesting, but also not. But LeFou is evil, right? I mean, I guess maybe it's made to make you question your feelings on LeFou.
Does
That's
LeFou
hapless.
Does he make them fall in love? Like, does he send like
he helps.
romantic letters to each of them from his own like perspective to try to get them to get like?
He might just like he kind of like nudges them. Maybe he might like whisper in their ears in a Cyrano fashion. I'm not sure. The video I watched was very confusing. It like only shows you the LeFou parts. It's a LeFou supercut, so I really couldn't make heads or tails of what was going on most of the time.
It sounds bad.
Kind of sounds bad, and thankfully the video cut out anytime anyone started singing, because the little bits that I heard of like a bunch, like several tired parents singing "There's something sweet." I didn't really want to see that.
Yeah, kind of uncool that they didn't bring like Paul Goubet for another credit.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the spirit of that theater, and we know his versatility.
Like kind of like Wonder Woman '84, where they bring just as a courtesy, they bring it back for one.
Right.
One line.
Yeah,
Post credits. Goodbye.
He's a maitre d' now at the Beast Castle and has been ever since his encounter with Virginia, the talking vagina.
I did not know they made an original. I just assumed it would be the set pieces of the movie with little animated transitions or little cards in between, like.
But it's
That's
a little more than that.
Interesting, but
Does
yeah,
that
a little
help?
more than that. But it seems to lean towards our more like, well, that's complicated.
That's like Iago actually is the hero of Aladdin. Didn't you know? Iago helped.
Yeah, it's like I thought that story went a little too neatly. There was somebody behind the scenes.
Yeah, and then that was obviously the villain's sidekick. He's the one who helped.
Yeah. It's
Turtle
very
Talk
tidy.
with Crush reveals that Crush both disappeared Nemo and helped him come back. So he was playing both
kidnapped?
sides. Yeah,
Wow.
like Yojimbo, like Fistful of Dollars. He was playing both sides.
Makes sense.
Well, I like reinventing the stories to bring them into the parks. But like, yeah, what do we do? I mean, Matt, you were kind of alluding to is this episode the best chance at the moment to try to encourage people currently defying the pandemic and in Disney World to go sit in this movie theater? I guess I don't know. Should we not tell people to go to a movie theater right now?
Probably not.
Yeah, when it is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like I said, you gotta have kind of a philosophical attitude. These things, it's in the spirit. Like I said, a World's Fair stuff. It comes and it goes, and you have to accept it. I don't want it to go. I want it to. I do like. It is cool that for whatever reason, all these other things have changed, but this little movie that is just in the forgotten corner of Epcot has lasted this whole time and is shown every day. And it would be nice. It would be nice if it lasted as long as the park lasted. One little piece. It doesn't hurt anybody. Show it one time a day. And come on, give me a break.
Yeah.
It's
Imagineer Joe Rohde was saying he thinks of these things like Broadway shows. They don't go forever. So it had a great run if it is going away, but why not?
It is nice these days. You can your favorite movies like this. You can watch them on YouTube. They're nice. They don't pull them down.
Mm-hmm.
There's great. The resolution is really good. It's not the same thing, but I mean, like, it's nice that you're able, like, now before talking about this, I could watch the whole thing and get a sense of it. So
yeah.
I discovered on Spotify the entire soundtrack to Impressions of France is one track is available from one of the official Disney albums. The whole 18, 19 minutes long of the whole thing. Music's great. I'm sure it'd be great to like do work to or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, hey,
it exists. It can live on. It can live. What if to keep it, they just like insert LeFou into many of the shots?
Right. He explains like he got the couple to get married.
Yeah. He stole the woman's top.
That's right. He releases the balloon. He stole the woman's top. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So yeah, maybe there's something, a compromise also that can be reached.
People like backstory. If that's really what people want is more machinations and backstory.
Right.
That's like the wave of the future. We can do that. We can retrofit it. We can add that to, Spaceship Earth. Like, here's Judi Dench teaching the Phoenicians how to like write or whatever. It's
Yeah.
things more complicated. We can do that if it preserves some of these great attractions.
Yeah. Let's complicate them all, but maybe several pre-shows also. Maybe like as many. Let's build a bunch of tiny pre-show rooms too.
One additional thing when we're talking about the great World Showcase films.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys happen when you were talking about Olaf replacement? Talk about the old Norway film called Spirit of Norway. Check it out. That might be my favorite. That's been gone for a long time now. It was like the post-show,
right?
Maelstrom. That even they were like people just like walked right through. You wanted to see this. It is great. It is like to me, it is like the pinnacle of the art form, and worth checking out.
Yeah, we haven't done Maelstrom yet, so I assume it'll be part of that. But I could easily see it being its own episode.
Don't forget, don't be like every person who ever rode Maelstrom and just walk right by that movie. It's worth like 5 seconds of your time. It's
right.
Yeah, my very bookish family would always sit and watch it.
Yeah. And I was always mad when people walk by, like, hey, check it out, have a little respect.
I didn't think you were allowed. Like, as a kid, I'm like, no, door's closed. Can't.
Cool, like aqua blue chairs. It was like a great little theater they had. It was great.
I do like that room a lot. Yeah.
The
well, we
Norwegians
should do
are a proud people, as the movie told me. Proud people of Norway would like just a few minutes of your time to tell you about their fascinating culture.
It's not a lot. We should do a Maelstrom episode and then like bring it to a climax and finish, and then the movie.
We forgot. Here's another hour about this movie. About
so don't go. Don't stop listening.
A couple of businessmen signing a paper. A man falling asleep. There's literally a long scene of a man falling asleep in a chair.
Don't they show like sort of like massive IBM type, like really old computer technology? That's one of my memories of it.
Yeah. You could fall asleep in a chair. They were just showing you what you could do. Like, you can fall asleep if you're going to sit and watch. That's okay. Harder to fall asleep in Impressions de France, because while the narration is a little hard to read on YouTube, the volume of it is very clear. Like, they play that music loud.
They're always talking about, they're always looking for IP these days, right? Again, can't sell anything with IP. I'm going to shop to Disney World Showcase Expanded Universe with just the movies, the characters from the movies, the old movie, Impressions de France. You shoot a little runner at the end, like where Paul Gabay goes and he recruits the All-Stars, and then they meet at like the American Adventure at the end or something.
They meet Neil deGrasse Tyson and
right. No, that's it. They're the bad guys.
Oh, good. That's better.
They have to go clear American Adventure of all the pedophiles that live there and all the sex criminals. Not Neil deGrasse Tyson.
No, that's a different thing.
All the sus guys.
All the people who have scandals behind them.
Yeah,
have to be ridded from, like, Ghostbusted out of the American Adventure.
Yeah.
So they'll meet in the Statue of Liberty.
I don't know, from the animatronics that are still there. They got to do like a Me Too swipe of all the backstories of all those guys.
Yeah.
This is good.
A lot of potential, I think.
Yeah, just good, honest people rounding up people who got corrupted by fame and living too much of an American adventure.
Too much.
They adventured a little too hard.
Honestly, those things are an important part of the American story as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Hubris, drug problems, like all that stuff. It's
all of it.
Yeah. Getting drunk with power.
It is unfortunate they did insert the head of the Robin Hood app into the end of that movie. It seems like that was misguided.
All the things every time they keep stepping in it. Like,
yeah.
Final. Any last impressions de France to have on record to encourage people to check this thing out when it is safe to do so.
A lot of good hot air balloon stuff in there.
Oh, some great hot air balloons. Yeah.
Great hot air balloon stuff. We were talking about that recently. And
I forgot there was more in this. Yeah. Non-Air Force One related. You know what you have to give it up to is, and what apparently part of the 360 thing is now we can do camera moves, because 360, those rigs are so crazy you can kind of only move back and forth. But with this 200-degree thing, you could tilt and it is very striking when it tilts up the Eiffel Tower. And you think it's cool and like, wow, that's a big, wide, grand shot. But I didn't realize how difficult it was to do that. Just a mere tilt was really insane, and they had to build a special rig to be able to do it. So good job on the tilt, everybody.
Great tilt.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's just pleasant. It's that thing that we say about some rides. Pleasant. It's very pleasant, and that's good.
Yeah. There's a dog parade. A bunch of dogs go by. Shout out the dogs.
That's good. The pastry window revs you up for the pastry
Great.
shop next door. Yeah,
I love that train car. I love the train car.
Oh, the train car sequence where it's like a bunch of the screens and then it goes down to the middle and it feels like the scenery is rushing by you. That is a great effect.
Eating a nice full meal on a train car, wouldn't that be?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's so nice.
I mean, it certainly helps that we've been inside for a year to make me want to get on a train car and eat a meal. But yes, it looks lovely.
Food off of a real plate at this point. Seems
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of me just like crouched by my fridge, like shoveling peanut butter into my mouth from the like this counts as a meal.
I miss
Wait, you would do that before we recorded at your house. Like,
Shut
hey.
up, Jason.
Impressions to your apartment.
That's new, Jason. That's a new behavior.
Okay.
That's only quarantine. One more thing. I like the wallpaper. Matt, you talk about fancy Epcot for fancy boys and girls. Nothing fancier than that wallpaper. It's nice, and I don't know if it's gold leafed but it's a golden hue, and I like being in that lobby.
Yeah, the little area they keep you in before you go in with the little art displays of art and architecture of France is great. People, fancy French people talking to you, welcoming you there.
Yeah. And it's it's just they really get all the aspects of it, the great scenery and the intimacy of the towns. And
it's it's a country that really has a great history of cinema and really respects the form, so that they have a big, grand, like, movie house to show you scenes of their country is very nice.
Anyone want us to try to pronounce how they say when we know it's palace, but do you want to guess how that palace is said? Mike, you're the French expert.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question, isn't it?
Palace with the A-I-S. How do you say it?
A-I...
Isn't it Palais?
Palais. It's probably
Palais du Cinema.
All right. We thanks for rescuing us, Jason.
Sure.
So we didn't embarrass ourselves further. And Matt, thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk about this thing for a while. You survived podcast The Ride. Really appreciate you being here. Let's exit through the gift shop. Is there anything you'd like to plug?
No, I came here to plug Impressions to France. Check it out. Let's get those numbers up. Let's keep this in. Let's push. It's opening at 6 p.m. now. Let's get it down to 5. Let's get popular enough to carve an hour out of the Beauty and the Beast thing.
Small, achievable goals.
Yeah, let's get a Reddit going to make sure everybody gets into Impressions de France, driving the popularity of it up.
Let's short it.
No, not short it. We're gonna Disney short it.
No, we're doing collective action.
Oh, you're right.
Short.
I don't know how anything works. That's why I just so don't know how this works that I thought that was shorting.
No.
It's not short it.
Yeah, we're not shorting it. We're sticking it to Disney, who's shorting it.
That's right. People should just like watch the YouTube on repeat. Maybe that's the way to get the numbers up now if you want to. Because let's make Impressions de France go viral. And then they'll think
that's
twice.
A good start, yeah.
Yeah, you can find like high-res copies both head-on and from the side. And I honestly think the side ones, when you can see a little of the extra screens, it's the effect worked a little more for me.
You can see happy wedding guests who seem to approve of the ceremony, and it's like being in the pew, like you're sitting next to. So it gives you the sensation of sitting next to someone, something we can't do right now.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's really the main reason. Lots of reasons to watch it. Matt, thanks for bringing it to the table here. As for us, you can check us out on your favorite social media, whatever that may be. And for 3 bonus episodes every month, check out Podcast The Ride, The Second Gate at patreon.com/Podcast The Ride. And so, au revoir, I guess.
I'll say je suis désolé. I'm sorry to our French listeners for not speaking more French. What else can I Je suis Michael. No, that's wait. Je m'appelle Michael is how to say my name. So I get a little more French there.
Mm-hmm.
So the end of the episode is I am Michael.
I am. Yeah.
All right.
Just me, Michael.
Michael is what I'm saying to the good people of France.
So on that note, I am Michael. He is Michael. I'm Scott. That's Jason. Bye bye.
Forever Dog.
This has been a Forever Dog production. Executive produced by Mike Carlson, Jason Sheridan, Scott Gardner, Brett Boehm, Joe Cilio, and Alex Ramsey. For more original podcasts, please visit foreverdogpodcasts.com and subscribe to our shows on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Keep up with the latest Forever Dog news by following us on Twitter and Instagram at Forever Dog Team and liking our page on Facebook.
It's the new year and you're looking to get a new car. Then head to Toyota's We Make It Easy sales event to find incredible deals on many of Toyota's most popular models, like Camry, Camry Hybrid, Corolla, Corolla Hybrid, Prius, Prius Prime, and even Highlander Hybrid. You'll find great ways to save with low payment leases and low APRs, not to mention huge cashback offers. So see your Toyota dealer today. We make it easy. Toyota, let's go places. 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 Let's go places.